Eileen McDargh, and I will introduce you first, tell you a bit about her. So she has been called a hope merchant, although she says she's been put on earth for comic relief, as you will discover. She's an internationally recognised keynote speaker, master facilitator, and award-winning author with expertise in resiliency and leadership. Her articles have appeared in countless publications, and 2 of her 7 books have been awarded national recognition. In 2020, Global Gurus International, a British-based provider of resources for leadership, communication, and sales training, also ranked her 5th of the world's top 30 communication gurus, following a global survey of 22,000 business professionals. She's a runner, an avid exerciser, and a lover of all things dark chocolate, something we have in common. Hello, Eileen, and welcome so much. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm very excited to be talking with you. And we had to discuss brands of dark chocolate, but maybe we'll do that later.
Oh, I love dark chocolate. And there's been articles about now how it's really, really good for your heart. Forget all the other stuff. Just have one thing of dark chocolate a week and you're good.
A week?
A week. Okay.
What about a day? So today we're here to talk about, you've got this fantastic new book out about burnout and how to get out of it. So what is burnout? Tell us, maybe we could start there.
Okay. Well, burnout was actually a term that was coined by Dr. Herbert Freudenberger back in the mid-70s. And basically is to exhaust your mental, physical, emotional resources by attempting to by attempting to live up to unrealistic expectations from yourself or for others. In other words, we keep pushing ourselves. So exhaustion is the key. Now, exhaustion can be anything from I need a nap to I'm never going to wake up again. So it's this gamut of feeling not only exhausted, but irritable, lost a sense of humor, overdoing everything from alcohol to food to underdoing, where people say, you don't talk to people anymore. And there is this heaviness, this load that is around you, all which is encapsulated beautifully in what Freudenberger wrote so long ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago now.
I really think about that. And what's fascinating is while he said it in the 1970s, and then Christine Maslach picked it up and did this whole wonderful burnout inventory. Well, instead of it being quenched, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And until last year, May of 2019, the World Health Organization declared that it was an occupational hazard, a global occupational hazard. And the numbers, if you do the research, it's everywhere. I mean, in the North America alone, they're saying it costs $300 billion a year in lost productivity from people overstress and overwork and burnout. So it's a big deal. And then you superimpose over that, Michelle, what's happened since March, which is this global pandemic. Whatever could that be? And it's become even intensified.
Even worse. Why do you think it's got worse and worse over the years why don't we learn? Like, what do you think's happened?
I think, first of all, I don't think we talked about it enough. And I think we didn't have as much pressure back then to constantly perform. And, I think both in the United States and in Japan, Japan has that word for kaizen, which is overwork and death by overwork. We didn't have that work. We just kept doing it. So we probably, sadly, in the US are probably one of the most sleep deprived nations in the world. I don't know whether it's we needed to do more, have more. It was actually probably have more. And so in some ways, what this pandemic all around is teaching us is what is it that you really need? Which I think is an interesting question.
Because it's forced us to stop. Well, some people have been busier than ever, but it's forced us to at least think about what we're doing a lot more than we've had to for years, I guess.
Well, it is. And when I wrote my book, Burnout to Breakthrough, Building Resilience to Refuel, Recharge, and Reclaim What Matters, my very first case study, actually all of my case studies, the first thing that had them working like this were the voices in their heads. And the voices in their heads, you're a psychologist, you know this, the voices in their heads were telling them, Hey, wait, but you're the first generation. You came from India. You live in Canada now. You can't let anybody down. People are expecting you to do all these things. Or, you know, I'm the first one in my family to go to college, so I have to do this. Or people will think badly of me. Or I'll let somebody down. And so the voices in our head keep saying more, more, more. And until we shut up the voices in our head, or ask the voices in our head, is that true? Which is where the wonderful work that you do comes in, because you can help people step back and say, what are you saying to yourself? Is it true? What would happen if you changed what you think those voices are saying to you? And for some of those case studies, the voices are dead. They're gone, but we still hear them.
Yes, it's like an old teacher from school or a parent.
And we all have that. I mean, and there was no maliciousness behind it. It's how we interpret what those voices are. And I think, you know, particularly if we're people who have a great sense of obligation. And there are certain cultures that feel more obligated than others, where I have to take care of everybody, which is a wonderful thing. But at some point in time, you have to stop and refill and refuel so you can take care of others.
But that's quite interesting you say that, because I would think for a collectivist culture like India, for example, I think would be more collectivist than, say, America. Then I'm thinking, and yet it's a crisis in America as well. And here, Australia, we're like Western individualistic culture. So I'm just thinking about that burnout. And so it's more than just, it's actually striving for something. I don't know, that the elusive success, whatever that means.
I think that's part of it. The illusion of success, the illusion of
the illusion as well, yeah.
And you know, let's face it. What this pandemic has also shown is an incredible economic disparity. So the people have worked very, very hard, and probably are not even staying even. They're going backwards, and we haven't been willing, as a, not only in my nation, but as a universe, to say, what does this really mean? So I'm going to tell you a wonderful story.
Okay.
Because I think it's a great metaphor for what we have as an opportunity now. And it appeared that in 1850, there was this massive storm that swept across England. I mean, we're talking wind, rain, you name it. And it's ferocious. 5 ships went down, all hands with the 5 ships. Another passenger ship going to Ireland sunk, and they managed to rescue a few of the passengers, but just horrific. Well, when finally the storm abated, the residents on the island of Orkney, which is a little island that's right there off the coast of Scotland, when they finally emerged to see what had happened, there is this point of land that now is called Skarabrae. Well, when they went there, the topsoil was gone. I mean, topsoil gone. Wind, rain, tides, you name it. And they looked down, and here, what had been buried all along was a village. There were houses. Houses that they found out much later were older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge.
Oh my.
I love this story because I want you to think about it. What at face value was this horrible disaster that ripped everything away. It reveals what we've been hiding and putting topsoil over, and have even forgotten that we've hidden. And so I think when it is ripped away, now we have the opportunity to say, don't put the topsoil back. How do we create the personal life I want? How do I create the business I want, the community I want, the nation I want, the globe I want? Because there is no such thing as going back. Everyone who says resilience is to bounce back, no, that's okay if you're a willow tree or a piece of steel. Humans don't go back.
What do humans do?
But you don't go back.
What do we do? What do humans do?
You can't step in the same water twice. The river has shifted. Once things have happened, it's gone. Yesterday is not the same as today, and will not be the same as tomorrow. So for every event, and what resiliency to me is growing through challenge or opportunity. So I see we got two things here. We got a tremendous amount of challenge. Oh my gosh. But we also have an opportunity to say, how do I look at where I am, and what do I want to create, not recreate, to create.
Yeah, create. Start fresh.
Yeah, that's exactly.
But bring the best of what was before as well, if you want.
Well, and honoring what went before. Now, what's interesting to me, and I have to do a lot more research on this, so I'm just now, quote, exploring the surface, which means I got to rip a lot of topsoil away to find, and I need to know more about Scarabre, because they really didn't start archaeological digs until the 1920s, 1930s of this. But in my initial readings, and don't hold me to this until I'm finished, but in my initial readings, the houses had no roofs on them. They were all connected. And all the houses were the same size. There was no temple to the gods. There was no princely tower. Everyone was equal. And I find that fascinating. That in order for, think how old this is. That in order to create this community, everyone was joined together. Now, in my reading, I'm not sure they're clear as to what happened to this village and why people left it, but you could see it was an active village.
Yeah.
Metaphors are wonderful teachers. So I think to me, it's a great metaphor for what we can potentially do now.
Yeah. So I would love to, because I've read your book, and you have such a lovely writing style, because it was such a quick read. Like, it was like I didn't have to labor any points. I was with you, and it was an enjoyable read. And I'd really love you to share your framework. How do we get out of burnout? And
okay. All right. Well, first off, it says burnout to breakthrough.
Yes.
Well, burnout is the It's
yes.
recognizing first and foremost that this is not the way I want my life to go. And that's a really hard thing. So before you can get to breakthrough, you have to break out.
Okay.
Breakout is where I begin to step back and go, whoa, number one, something's not right. And then break out. And this is where I encourage people, and it's there in the book, what are some of the personal prompts that go on, the personal triggers that go on in my head that have me responding in ways that are less than optimal. And then at the same time, parallel, what is going on in the organization. So this is not only a question for you as a worker, but for you as a manager, you as a leader. Are there things unwittingly, unknowingly, that I'm creating this fire for my employees? So if I go from burnout, then I've got to break out and then begin to say, how do I get my life, my work back into a place where I want it? And that's when the breakthrough. And breakthroughs, you say, oh, I got it. I can do this. And by the way, it's a journey too. Because if you think about it, there are times in which life seems to expect more of us than we can handle. And I got to start this process all over again. What am I doing? How am I saying? Where do I get help? So that's basically the process. So I ask a series of questions. So it's first introspective, as well as then what is it organizationally? What are my ahas about this? First my oh no's, then my ahas, and then my and that's where we say, what are the actions that I can take? And so the actions have to do with how do I control what I'm thinking? What's the emotional? Sometimes it's the people who I connected with emotionally who are absolutely draining every resource that I have. And this is the time I think you throw them overboard, or you say, you know what, I can stay here for 3 months, but that's it. That's it. I'm gone. So with my head, with my heart, and my hands, got to do stuff. It's not enough to think and to feel. You have to do. So I provide some specific steps of things that you consider to do. And then the other thing that I think moves us forward and helps us is where we can find laughter in what's happening and play. Play is a tremendous, not only refueler, but refresher. It's also very creative. There's a man by the name of Dr. Stuart Brown who has written a wonderful book on play. And he observed animals, and they
frolic. No,
the animals that play the most are most successful in the wild because when you play, you're creative. If you don't play, you stay just like this. So, and play is a way to renew what we have, because remember I said it's exhaustion. So resiliency is energy management. What is it that will give me energy? What's depleting my energy? So that's what I'm looking for, refueling and getting rid of what depletes me. And it's a cycle. But if I can get a hold of this as years go by, and sometimes it's years, you're trying to get out of this place, and it could be this place of darkness till you move to another one. So I also think another way of looking at this, Michelle, is to think of this as a journey. So if I take a journey, I know that I have to get to, I don't know, name me a place that I might drive to from Melbourne. Give me a place.
Lawn. I want to go to Lawn and go down the Great Ocean Road.
Okay. So I got to get to this place. And then I'm going to go on another trip, because actually where I really want to head is up to the Gold Coast. So I got a really long trip. And
that is a long trip from here.
It's a very long trip. Yeah. So I know that first I have to get to this place. And guess what? The petrol stations are closed. So I have to figure out where's the next one. And so stuff will happen, but I'm on a journey. And I anticipate that before I can get to the Gold Coast in Australia, then I'm going to have different things are going to happen, but it's a journey, because where I ultimately want to go is to the Gold Coast. So if I saw my life as a journey, there are going to be times in which I know exactly what's happening, and other times, guess what? It's a detour. Got to go around.
Well, right now we can't get out of Victoria, so I can't even get to the Gold Coast. We're locked down.
Here in California, we can't get out of this either, so.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to, I'm thinking about if I'm a leader of I've got a team, what signs would I look for to help any of my team if I was worried about them burning out? What
Okay.
Is there anything to look for?
It's a great question. First off, I think that leaders, number one, need to be transparent. And by transparent, you need to own up how you're feeling about all of this, and to create a place of safety for your team to be able to talk about how are you doing. And it's not, did you finish the project? Let's now connect on a very human level. And let's just, what's keeping you up at night? What is it that brings you joy where you are? Let's talk to each other as human beings, and then invite the different team members, because what could put to be truthful about what is exhausting them. It could be workload. It could be the fact that we don't have the right technology. You're asking me to do these things and the technology isn't there. And as a leader, you've got to open the place to say, you know what, it could be any of these things, some of which I can take care of, some of which I can't. But if you don't tell me, I don't know. And so the hardest skills for leader right now are the softest skills for leaders right now.
Yeah.
Because it really means deeply listening. And for many of us, that is not a skill set. We're used to giving orders, looking at the bottom line, seeing what the flow chart looks like, what's the Excel spreadsheet, what's the profit loss over here. And now we got to just step back. The opportunity is when we join each other, like you and I are here in a Zoom call, and we're separated by a massive ocean and continents, and yet I'm in your house and you're in my house. It's a very intimate setting. And so around the Zoom screen, I'm sharing people's lives in that Zoom screen, which is why if I were a leader, I would insist everyone has their video on. You can't hide. You're not going to sit there and do this, or you're going to check email. I want you present because your presence matters.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about this, because I was in a Zoom meeting recently and they asked everyone to put up their hands and say on a scale of 1 to 5, where are you? So at that day, I was 3, I can't do a half, but I was 3.5. And most people were 4. There were 2 of us that were 3.5. And then they wanted to know where was the half? And I'm thinking, I don't want to talk about the half. It was just I just had a little unpleasant moment. It wasn't the biggest of deals. And, but it was just, I was still recovering from it because it was just before the call. And so I had to talk about it, which then I thought, I don't want to talk about it. And then I think they were trying to be nice to me, but I actually just wanted my own space. And so it was quite difficult. And I thought maybe I shouldn't have been so honest. And I thought, oh my gosh, imagine if that really happened.
All right, now I'm gonna ask you, who are these people in that Zoom meeting?
Oh, they were colleagues. So they were.
Are there colleagues that you're close to?
I'm getting, well, we've started Zooming since not lockdown, but since lockdown here in Melbourne, and it's been quite nice. But we've only had about 3 or 4, because I don't know them that well. But it was, I don't want that group for that. Like, I think that was part of it. Yeah.
So that probably could have been the wrong question. So on a scale of 1 to 5, that's obviously very subjective. I think it would have been more appropriate to say, if you had to think of an animal that represents how you're doing right now, what animal would that be?
I would have been a lion, because I was rah.
Okay, this is great.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a dolphin.
Oh,
that's my animal. That's my animal familiar, is a dolphin. And why? See, so I can start with something that is not as threatening. So what is it? What animal do you identify with, and why? That tells me something about you. It tells you something about me. You could also, Michelle, have said, that's really interesting, and I'm not sure why I'm a half. I need to think about that. I appreciate your concern.
I could have. I wasn't very good at the boundary thing, because I wanted to be like, I thought maybe, but I think this is the dilemma that workers face with their workplace when they're asked, because I've had a few people say they love being asked, but at the same time, sometimes they want to not tell certain things.
Well, then we need to make it okay for them not to do that. I'm going to recommend another book to you.
Okay.
And it's called Together. It's back here on my bookshelf by, let me get the full thing. This is the wonderful thing when we're in each other's space. It's Together: The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World.
It's a bit reflective. Can you put it up?
There you go.
Backwards. I can't read. Who's the author? It's backwards.
The author is Vivek, V-I-V-E-K, Murthy, M-U-R-T-H-Y, Dr. Vivek Murthy. He was the 19th Surgeon General of the United States. This is one of the most fascinating books, because he has done the research and he's collected things that loneliness, feeling not engaged, not included, is dangerous to your health.
Oh, William James said that in the 1800s.
And what he did, I want to make sure if I can say this right, when he was Surgeon General, and here he's bringing together all of these, all these different people. Before he would start any meetings, what did he call it? I'm going to make this word up, but it was like, share something. And so before I would start, bring in something from your childhood that made you happy. That's what your assignment is.
Oh, that's much easier. Yeah.
So he would, where everything, he never started with, okay, here's the issue, get down to business. There was always something that allowed people to begin to see who sits around the table as a human being, not as a title.
And that's actually quite, yes, I've heard different places where they say, tell me something about your weekend, or and get everyone to share that before they've talked about work at their Monday meetings or something. But for those who don't want to share, maybe it's something like, what about the people who are more, I always have a little bit of a challenge with this, because some people are more happy to share than others. Some people take longer to warm up than others. So it's that permission, I guess, to share as much or as little as you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Really, and I think we need to, that's part of creating a safe space.
Yeah, that's true. And I didn't.
You know how to create a safe space, Michelle. And we can teach people how to create a safe space. I remember back when open office was the deal, and I was in some company, and this guy says, well, I have an open office, an open door. I have an open door policy. And I watched this employee come in, and the manager said, all right, well, this better not be a stupid question.
So open.
That is, the door is open, but the manager is closed.
That is so true. One of the things in your book where you mentioned Dr. Murthy, he had this inside scoop exercise.
That's it. Inside scoop. That's it.
That was
in the book. I knew, but I didn't get to read the book until the other week. Inside scoop. That's what he called it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I loved it because I actually made a note of it because I loved it. That's where you had to show pictures. And it made me think, it's interesting you said something nice from childhood, because it was like show and tell, like, look what I've got. This is what we did. And it was like getting it up in front of the class as a kid. But there was something about it.
So I read this book with my highlighter going like this because there was so much value in it. And I had read about the inside scoop and put it in my book, but I had not read all of his books.
The whole book, yeah, this book. Oh, yeah, because that projective, I was also thinking you could show something and a picture that means something to you, or even just a photo, and get people to say what they see. And then you can actually see how people interpret and how different we all are as well, like a projective technique. And yeah, but I thought that would also be another way of getting to know each other, what you see in a picture.
So your initial question was, how does a leader recognize burnout in employees? And so what we came up with is, how does a leader create a safe space so that you can begin to pay attention, and the leader is transparent, that the leader works on and is willing to hear feedback of where it's not a safe space. But I think you can recognize people who were talkative are no longer talkative, people who are withdrawn, people who, and this is one of the wonderful things about Zoom, their eyes are dead.
Oh yeah, they're not with you.
Yeah. There's nobody's home here. You know, you can set some of that. And then another thing that I've heard, and I don't know which organization did this, but I thought was a great idea. They have their Zoom meetings in the morning, you know, checking in what's on your docket and how can we help you. And they call it's a brutiful morning, BREW, like a cup of coffee. It's a BREW, to brew coffee.
Oh, beautiful. Oh.
It's a beautiful morning. And so they start off with saying, what makes this a beautiful morning? It's great. There you go. It's morning for you. It's dinner time for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
A beautiful morning.
So I think we should begin to wrap it up. Is there any last words or anything that you would like to share with the listeners?
Oh, there's so much. Go buy my book. But seriously, I don't ignore how you are feeling. There's a wonderful line that was, never for the sake of peace and quiet deny your feelings and what's happening. When we deny that, we go deeper. And I think, given what's going on, we also need to recognize we're all in the same space. Some people might be a little better than others, but for the most part, we're trying to figure out how to move through a world that's never looked like a world we've ever had before. The more I can do it with people as opposed to alone, the better chances I have of matriculating through that. And I guess the last thing I would say, it's Howard Zinn, the philosopher. He said, to have hope, one does not need certainty, only possibility. And I love that possibility.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if people want to, where do people get the book, and how do people find out more about you? Where do they go?
Well, thank you. Obviously, Amazon is the place. If you just go on Amazon and type my name in, you will see the new book. It launches actually next week, and this will probably be coming out after this is launching. Yes. There's also the audio version. If you're into Audible, if you're a listener rather than a reader, it's there. If you spell my name, you can find me. So it's Eileen McDargh on Facebook. It's McDarling, MacDarling, McDarling on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn. Hopefully I'm not on a wanted dead or alive poster in the post office, but I'm easy to find. And if you need to email me, it's Eileen@eileenmcdargh.com.
You want to spell that for people? You want to spell your name for people so they
EILEEN, Irish spelling, at Eileen, EILEEN, McDargh, McDarg, G like go, H like happy.com.
Got it. thank you so much. You're a pleasure to speak with as always. And yeah, go read the book. It was a really enjoyable read, and you get lots of good, like it's a nice framework going from burnout to breakthrough and how to use resilience through that, and nice stories like that. You were mentioning the Indian person going to Canada, for example, and even like great tips like that Dr. Murthy Inside Scoop idea as well. So yeah, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. And I can hardly wait when I get to travel and I can come to Melbourne and you and I can eat chocolate to our heart's delight.
Won't that be wonderful? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye for now.